Hello. How's everybody doing? Let's do a quick sound check. If you guys could let me know on YouTube and Twitch and Facebook, if you guys can hear me, then we can go ahead and get started. So yeah, if anybody can, if the audio is good. Okay, good. So great. Twitch is good. Let's see if we'll get one more service, and I think if that's the case, then we're good all around. All right. So if anybody on YouTube, if you can hear me, let me know. Looks like we're going well on Twitch. And I don't know if there's a delay. There's probably a little bit of a delay on Facebook, but I don't think there's one on Twitch. Or, I'm sorry, on YouTube. All right, so Maker JP and Vanessa, I guess you guys are on YouTube. If you guys can hear me okay, just type it in the chat and we can move forward. All right. Okay. Still not getting anything from YouTube. Hopefully it's working okay. There's quite a few people on. I don't know what's going on. All right, well, if you guys can't hear me on YouTube, then I guess you'll let me know. I need to kind of get going on here, so I will do that. So welcome all to the stream, and we're working on this spaceship. As you can see, we've been working on it for quite a while, and the modeling is pretty close to being done. And I don't know if you can see it on the top corner, but I am on ZBrush 2021, brand new, just came out. So if you guys have some questions on it, you can ask. I had the fortune of beta testing, so I know a little bit more about it, and I can answer some questions and maybe not others. But it's up to the questions. So if you have questions, just ask them. So like I said, the modeling is almost done. Today we'll be focusing on getting it maybe painted a little bit, getting some color in there, and also doing a little bit more modeling. Okay, so here we go. All right, so Facebook is good. All right, so everybody is on track. Thank you. So any questions on this before I get going, or any questions in general? Again, this is just a spaceship that I'm working on. It's based on, you know, a bunch of different concepts that I have. I've got my handy dandy reference sheet right here. So there's a bunch of different spaceships and compositions, colors, or whatever that I've been going off on. And you can kind of, I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see here that the Sulaco is a huge influence, and you can see that influence on this spaceship too. So Sid Mead did this for Aliens, and since then it's been pretty popular. So I've got quite a few of the Sulaco pictures. I've got some other spaceships from other different games. I think these are from EVE Online. Really amazing work. I don't know the name of the artist, but it's really good stuff. Here's another example of something that is basically very much kind of influenced by the Sulaco. Sid Mead, of course, has huge influence on everything else. Some spaceships from Homeworld, some actual photography of different planets. And just in case I want to have like a planetary kind of scenario like this, and then have the spaceship be over here. It's always a good idea to kind of pick objects that you like to base your spaceships on. So here I've picked some interesting looking knives and guns. And I think here I'm looking at color options, both here and here. And then some actual photographs of spaceships that are influential. And then just some design elements and just some various stuff. So this takes a long time to do to kind of get a good amount of pictures together. Sometimes I spend a lot of time on it. Sometimes I don't have that time. I don't have the luxury because I'm on a project that needs to move pretty fast. So in that case, I either go by ones that I already have or pick new ones. And also, I guess the closest thing that we have to something like this on our planet today is maybe a submarine or an aircraft carrier. So there's some pictures of those as well. So always keep these handy and use them to to reference every now and again when I'm stuck or when I need some inspiration. My video is doing this weird thing where it is not focusing again, so I'm going to try and see if I can change the zoom and the brightness here to see if I can get to something a little bit better. Nope, still kind of doing this weird blur effect. So let's just kind of stick with that for a while. I think it fixes itself every once in a while, but if it doesn't, we'll come back. All right, so hey David, thanks a lot. So this Angelus is asking how long this has been in progress, and that's a great question. I will go ahead and show you the different kind of the different time frame it's been going on in. So if you go to ZBrush Live, this is where all the different streams are. So here's me streaming today, and you'll notice here that you can go to presenters, and it will give you a list of all the different streamers for ZBrush Live. Wow, they have done a new kind of thing, or is this because of my zoom level? Oh no, this is the intro video. That's right, they've done an intro video of this. And if you scroll down, I'm in here somewhere. You can find me, and there you go. And you can see all the different streams. So I basically, the way I do this is I spend 2 hours every other Friday. Sorry, I missed last Friday, but there was some scheduling conflicts, so I'll be on again in a couple of Fridays. So you basically can see that this was 2 hours, this was 2 hours, so that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. So 16 hours of working on this, plus I've worked on it a little bit offline as well. Not that much, unfortunately. I haven't really had the time. Things have been kind of crazy busy, and I've got some other projects I'm working on. So yeah, so about maybe the amount of time you see here, we're close to finishing it up. I think 1 or 2 more sessions, and we'll have our final result. Another place you can also find this is if you go to Pixologic's YouTube channel, right? So that's youtube.com/Pixologic ZBrush. And here you can also go to playlists, and I think I'm a playlist as well. And you can also chronologically see the different ones. So here is one that we did. And yeah, so you can tune in and kind of see the progress of it. And usually for something like this, if I were to bid it for a project, for a spaceship like this, I would bid them maybe about a week or so to do it, from the beginning to end. And that's just kind of the initial one. And then if they want reviews, then that will take as much time as they basically need for it to finish. So hopefully that answers your question, and let's kind of get started. So first things first, ZBrush 2021 just came out this week, and if you haven't had a chance to take a look at it, let me switch back to this again. If you haven't had a chance to look at it, you can see the full stream where Joseph and Mike Pavlovich did their kind of introduction of it. So it's really interesting, and there's some really cool stuff in there, and I'm sure you'll be seeing more and more of it as time goes on. So you can see already here that this streamer here is already kind of doing a cape, and I'm working on a project as well, actually a couple of projects on this, and I'll be showing it. I'm also working on a tutorial which I'll be making available on Gumroad soon on how to use the cloth system to do the 7 classic folds, so look out for that. And there's a bunch of stuff coming on Gumroad. I'm also going to, based on what is new in ZBrush 2021, I'm also going to be doing an update to my, IMM brush. So I have a insert mesh brush that is just primitives, and basically it's a bunch of cubes and whatever, and you can get this on Gumroad. There's a free version, and then there is a one that's for paid that has a few extra pieces in it. And I'll be updating this so that it has a plane, because the new ZBrush has a kind of a new thing for ZModeler, which is the ability to actually do planar modeling or to extrude edges. So it's really exciting. It really kind of makes my life a lot more pleasant working in ZBrush, and so watch out for that. Yeah, we're going to color it today. Yes, that's going to be kind of today. We're going to figure out some colorways for it and figure out ways of making it certain colors and making it look good. Okay, so one thing we got to do still is to do these wings over here, or I shouldn't say wings, I keep saying that, but these panels that basically are solar reflectors, and so we're going to be working on those a little bit. Let me see here. Let me go to the move brush here. So we're going to be working on these pieces. Let me solo that out. And if you can see the topology on these, it's pretty simple, right? It's very, very simple topology. And what I want to do here is I want to add a little bit of a border. And I tried to do that before, but I wasn't very successful because, and let me just kind of put this in dynamic subdiv for a minute. I wasn't very successful in doing it because the, it kind of wouldn't do what I wanted it to do. So, I would want to get like a border around here that would be equidistant. And for some reason, it just wouldn't do that. So here, what we're going to do is I'm going to polygroup these, the top parts. So I'm just going to go to polygroup and flat. Let me see something here. I'm actually going to do this. Still, yeah, it is. Yeah, my screen has a weird flicker on it, so you can't see it in the stream, which is kind of nice, but for me it's kind of weird. But anyway, what I'm going to do is here I'm going to polygroup flat island, and the video is fixed. That's always good. So we're going to just polygroup flat island here, and then this one, a different one. And then, so what we're going to do here is I'm going to create a border on this. So before, let me make sure symmetry is on. Of course it's not. So let's mirror what we just did. Mirror and weld. Okay, and so I'm going to do this as well. So that's just a different subgroup. Let me just turn symmetry on now that I think about it. Okay, and I want to create a border around this, right? So before, when I went to do an inset, right, it used to have a different kind of way of doing it, but now it has this equidistant way of doing it, which is really nice. So if I, and let's do it with the polygroup island, and if I do this now, when I create a border around this, it creates an equidistant border, which is really, really nice, right? And I don't know any other program that does this yet, but it's a really nice way of just kind of getting that nice equidistant border. So we're going to do the same thing here on top. What's going on there? Oh, I keep doing it to the one on the bottom. That's weird. I guess they're too close or something. Nope. All right, so let's do that. And then here, insert polygroup island, and I'm just going to say insert polygroup. Might be easier. Okay, so now you can see I'm creating again that inset border, and it just is doing it perfectly for me. Now what I want to do here is I just actually, real quick, I just want to pick these two. Are these flipped? Is that what's happening? Just double on. They sure are. Okay, let me just fix this real quick. Flip. All right, now we are good, and I should not have that problem anymore. So let me just go back to where I started. And let's flip this again and turn double off. Okay, good. All right, so I'm going to do a quick one of these. So there is that kind of equidistant one, and then same thing here. and do the same things, right? So now I'm getting in this nice equidistant border around here. I think what's happening is that this is too thin, so it's kind of clashing into each other. I'll do it this way, and then do one for this over here too. All right, so I basically did it for all this polygroup, so I did all those as well. Do one here, and that's a bit too much. I'm just going to do it single by polygon by single polygon. So this kind of thing is new here, where you can just have these insets, and it's a very, very nice way to work and get these kind of borders around something. And I'm going to do that here as well. I think I need to turn backface masking on. I think that's what's happening. Where are you? And also, I think you'll notice that my menu has changed. So here I've also added all the cloth brushes and some other ones that I bought recently. So this is getting pretty big. I'll probably cull it down a little bit. But for now, you know, I just added these because I want to be working with them. I probably won't be using all these brushes all the time. All right, so I don't know what happened here. Okay, it all looks good. All right, so this one's done. Let's go over to the one in the back. Let's go to this one and do something very similar. I'm going to try something real quick here. Just pardon me for a second. I'm just going to restart my monitor, see if that flicker goes away. Yep, that fixed it. All right, cool. All right, so now I'm going to pick this one, solo it. Oh, we're still on this one. Two. That's the one we worked on. Now we're going to work on this one right here. Hello. Here we go. And let's go ahead and solo it out. I'm going to do the similar kind of thing here where I go to that. And let me make sure this one's not flipped inside out as well. Flip. All right. No, this one was fine. Okay, so here, let's do. Yeah, I got to figure out the backface masking. I'm just going to do it here in the brush menu. Brush, auto masking, and where are you? Backface mask. Here we go. All right. So now. Should just be able to do this kind of very. Here we go. All right. I don't know why it keeps shifting to dynamic subdiv. All right, so I'm just going to do this polygroup and this polygroup. Turn backface mask off, and then just do that. I'm going to try doing this with a mouse. It might be jumpy because of all the different things I've got running on my machine. Here we go. All right, let's do that one. And then, so a single poly inset, equidistant. All right, the settings are right. Let's do this one. There it is, this one. And what's nice is you just can click and it will do the same exact size. So that one. So now I've got these nice equidistant borders around here, and then I'm going to also do them to the ones on the bottom. One. I think these are way too thin. I don't think backface mask is working. Let me try it again. Yeah, it keeps going to the other let me turn double off. Here we go. Yep, that's what I want. This one, I think I've added 3 in the back. Okay. Probably need to revisit these models here, and yep, so it doesn't really make sense to do them over there, but I do have my borders on here. Of course, I didn't have symmetry on, so I'm just going to mirror and weld, mirror, oops, here and weld. Okay, so now I've got it on both sides. All right, so yeah, this equidistant thing is really, really useful, especially for creating borders around things. And you know, it was just opportune for me to kind of wait for ZBrush 2021 to come out so I could actually use that capability. It looks like I've got some weird kind of thing over here that I noticed. So let me see if let me turn symmetry on first. Symmetry. I don't know if it's just a speck on my screen or if there's actually some, yeah, there's an object over here. So I'm just going to go ahead and hide it and delete hidden. All right, so now we're back on this. Let me turn on polyframe. I'm going to do a quick render here just to kind of make sure that I've got the insets equivalent on each side. So I'm just going to do a quick render here with polyframe turned on. In the meantime, it's a good time to see if you guys have any questions and also get a swig of tea. All right, so the inset looks pretty even. It looks like I forgot to do the ones over here, so it's easy enough to just redo them. And yeah, so let's do those. So I need to do one over here, and I need to make sure I'm not in the back. So this is a really, really thin piece over here. So what's happening is that as I'm getting to here, it's do the flip here. Yep. It's doing it on the other side. All right. Of course, there's a way of, here we go. What I should do is just isolate this polygroup, like so. I don't know what's going on here. Let's go do this one more time. Right, so I should be able to just click on this and isolate the polygroup. Here we go. This is what I'm looking to do. And now there's this. So let's go back to that. I'm still doing the ones inside. That's weird. All right, there's something wonky going on with these different solar panels, and I'll figure it out later. But anyway, so now that I've got these, I can give them a little bit of thickness and whatnot, but I'm not going to really spend a lot of time on that right now. But I think I should just kind of mention and show you how this works really well let's just go ahead and go to one of these guys and convert it to, let's say, this sphere. And make it bigger, right? And so here, if I want to create a border around this, for example, let's say I'm going to make some sort of a mace or something like that. So I can just go in here, and I think this will be kind of nice for me to show because, so we're going to do inset, and we're going to do it on polygroup island, right? So now you can see I can create like a nice inset over here, and all the distances around here are exactly the same. And then what I can do is I can just mask this polygroup. So mask. Single poly. Right, I'm just going to mask these 4 and then invert that mask and then just pull this out. Maybe do one more inset. How about that before I do the masking? Right, oops. Like so, and then do the mask. Invert it. And just do something like this. Like so. And then let's just do one of these guys over here. So just create a kind of a straight edge over here. So. Right, and then I have this nice mace over here, and then what I can do here is start subdividing it. Divide. Okay, maybe it's going to be microphone. Yeah, let's do a microphone. Why not? And actually, this will be a cool way for me to show off the micro mesh capability. So here's that, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually create another sphere. Oops. So there's this, and then I'm going to go ahead and append one of these guys. I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but I guess you guys will kind of see some of the cool new stuff in ZBrush 2021. And so here, what I'm going to do again is go to my brush, pick a sphere that has some more points on it. There we go. And I'm going to bring this over to here. And if I want to create kind of like a microphone-like pattern on it, so this is kind of more touted as and shown for cloth stuff, but it works with non-cloth stuff as well. So let's say this is kind of the head of the microphone, and what I can do here is at any point in time I can go to geometry, turn dynamic subdiv on, right? So now that gives me kind of a smoother sphere, and then I can just turn micropoly on, and then there are all these different micropolys. I can turn them on. So there's that, right? And now I'll, just with one button press, I've got a kind of a microphone, and I can choose these to be bigger or smaller, right? And let me turn polyframe off. So now I've got a microphone top, and I did that with just like 2-3 clicks, and it's really, really nice. Let me just go ahead and align these correctly. So there you go. Right, so you can just create a microphone that looks like this with just a few clicks. And again, there's so many different micropolys. You can click one that kind of has hexagons like that, or you can create one that is more chainmail-like. So here's chainmail microphone, right, for heavy metal kind of bands. And yeah, there's some really neat ones here. And again, this is more aimed towards cloth, but you can use it for this type of thing too. And any object that you create can be this micropoly. So, they've got spheres here, so you can go ahead and choose, like, I think, where is it? You can choose spheres. So now I've got this kind of thing. So it's maybe like a scepter or something like that placed over here. And again, you can always, scale these up or down, right? So I'm going to go to 10 scale. And now I've got my mace. So I started out wanting to make a mace, then I made a microphone, and now I make one of these. And if I don't want this many points, I mean, it's kind of a little bit over the top here. I can just reduce the subdivision levels, and then I've got this, right? So this micropoly is really, really cool. It's one of the things that I really like in ZBrush 2021, and I'll be using it quite a bit for some of the things that I'm doing. There we go. Yeah, nobody's going to want to mess with this guy. And then I can, of course, make this a little bit thinner. So, right, and then there's that. And of course you can use this with nano-mesh as well, but I just thought this would be a cool thing to show. All right, using the noisemaker. Well, noisemaker is a whole other thing, right? So this actually is adding geometry. This is not a texture. This is actual geometry, right? Let me switch to this. This is actual geometry, and if I like it, I can just go to dynamic subdiv over here and just click apply. And now this is actually geometry, right? So this is all geometry. I can sculpt on it. So let's say, the guy is fighting and he hits something. And actually I'm going to use dynamics to do that. So let's say he hits somebody's head. This is going to be really horrible. Sorry, guys, but I have to do it. Completely going off of tangents here. So let's say we pick... let's say we pick this dude. Okay, so oh, this is a project. No, we're not cancel that. Let's go and pick a tool so we can load it in. Here he is. Okay, so there is this guy right here. Did I replace what I had with this? No, this is okay. So I'm just going to copy this. Actually, let's merge it down first. Merge down. Okay, so there he is, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to copy this guy. And we're going to bring him into here and paste him. Where are you? Okay, and then what we're going to do here is turn lightbox off. So here's our guy right here, and here is our mace, right? Let me turn this guy. Actually, this guy is right. The mace is wrong. Okay, so I'm just going to turn this like so. Right, so that's a matchstick, I guess, head. Move this over and down into here. Actually, I'm going to forget about this. It's not a, it's kind of like a projectile thing maybe, right? So I'm just going to delete that or just hide it. I don't need it. Okay, so there's the guy, right? Like so. And what we're going to do is we're going to use this as a object that is going to deform based on the guy's head. So actually, no, the guy's got a, no, let's hurt the guy. Let's hurt the mace, right? So this guy actually is really very, very strong, right? So he's got a very hard head, and he's not going to be putting up with anything. Just to the center, make him bigger. Like so, and then let's move our mace to the center as well. And move it up here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to use this guy as the collision object. So notice here that I've also changed my UI to have the dynamics menu. So here's the guy, here's the mace. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and say what I want to do here is I want to calculate a collision volume. So what that'll do here is it'll basically whatever is not this will be the collision volume. And I'm going to choose a lesser inflate because I want this to be pretty close to him. Right, so now if I move this down, nothing's going to happen, right? Because you know, this object is really not using the dynamic simulation unless I either run the simulation, in which case this is what's going to happen, right? So not only do I do cloth with this, but I can also do simulations like this. Or I can choose this other transpose, which is transpose with dynamics, and then I can actually manually do this, take it up, do it again. So I guess some of the pieces are going through the object, but some of them are not, right? But basically, like if I want to get this guy's face imprinted on this mace, I can do this, pull back out, and you can see that the mace is kind of conformed inside to this object. So you can use this also to do interesting things like this, or you can also do things where you can conform, you can take one object and change it out to be something else. So any questions on any of this? The dynamics is really, really cool. Usually they show it with different types of cloth materials and whatnot, and it's really cool with cloth, and I'll go ahead and show you that too. So I'm just going to delete this beautiful mace that I made, and this thing too. And let me add a panda plane here. I know you guys want to see the spaceship, but this stuff is too cool not to talk about. Right, so here's just a plane, like so. Oops. Right, and what I'm going to do, oh, it's already kind of reacting to, let me switch back to my regular transpose. Here's my plane, like so, right? And what I can do is, that's the other thing that I really like in ZBrush 2021, and I probably will use this exact same capability for those reflectors. So here, jumping back to this, these reflectors over here, I had to actually use QMesh or whatever to give them thickness, but now what I'll do is I'll probably delete all the faces except just the top faces and use this capability of ZBrush, which is this, right? So here I have my guy, right, and I've got this plane. And what I'm going to do with this plane is I'm just going to go ahead and real quick remove all the creases. So I'm just going to uncrease all. So now it has no creases. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to divide it a few times, just once maybe, right? And delete lower. So I've got something like this. And what I can do here is just by clicking in Dynamic Subdiv, I can just click one button here, to make it dynamic, and then I can just click on this thickness to give it a thickness, right? And I can just kind of increase this, and now you can see that it's added this thickness. So this thickness is actually not there. This is just the plane, right? And until I apply this thickness, it's not going to be there, right? So I can make this thinner or thicker or whatever, right? So that's kind of a cool way to create thickness. And so that's what I'm going to do with these reflectors, right? So here, what I'm going to do is, since these are crashing into each other and causing all sorts of problems like I did before, what I'll do is I'll just keep the top planes that I have and then just give it thickness. And then I know that they will all be really good thickness and they will not clash into each other. So again, kind of super, super new useful thing in ZBrush 2021. And here what I can do is just rotate this around like this. And again, I'm just going to recalculate my collision volume, which again is this guy's head. So basically the way the collision volume works is whatever subtool is showing that's not the subtool you've selected will become a collision volume. And now if I run the simulation, this will fall onto his head. But what I'm doing here is I'm not going to do it that way. I'm just going to go ahead and turn on this transpose cloth again. And as I move this down, you can see that it's going to conform to his head like so, right? Now it's going through here because I don't have enough iterations. So I'm going to change this up to 256. And what is my, let's see, the inflate here. I'm going to change this to, let's say 0.1, right? So basically what this says is give me a little bit about a 0.1 distance between the head and the object. And now as I move it on, notice that it's kind of going to click and collide with his head. Again, it's still going through here. So what I can do is if I don't want it to go through, so I can actually up the simulation iterations. And I can also here, I can play with the strength and firmness as well. So this is a pretty firm at 3. I'm going to go to 2, right? So I can bring it down like so. Right? And if it's going through, what I can do is as I get close, right, to here, if I don't want that to go through, I can just go ahead and quickly mask that area out. So here, I'm just going to go ahead and choose, just mask this area. So I don't want this area to move, but I want the rest of the object to kind of come down, right? So now it's coming down, and I can remove the mask and then just kind of bring this down like so. And now this is just going to drape over his face. I can also do something else with this, and I've done this. I'll show you the thing I've used this for. Now let me go ahead and let's see what's going on here. I've got gravity. Gravity is the only thing I've got. Oh, my gravity strength is pretty high too. I might want to bring that down to maybe about 5. So that will help even less. I'll turn this off, and let's take the gravity down to maybe 2. So the gravity and the resolution or simulation iterations are basically what control your simulation. So now as I bring this down, you will notice that it is, again, just kind of going through the object, but I can keep moving it up and down until I kind of get it to stick to that one part. I think what's going on is that this object has the eyes and the mouth bag inside, so it's kind of reacting to those instead of just the outside part. So let me just do this real quick where I'm just going to split this off. Split 2 parts, okay, and I'm going to delete these guys, don't need them. Okay, and I think now we're not going to have as much of an issue with that collision. Nope, still do. Oh, I need to recalculate, of course. Recalculate the volume, and then no, it's still doing it. I don't know why. But the thing I was going to tell you about before is I should do this without having this on. Put this on like this, and then just go in here and rotate it like this. And so I'm going to make a mask for this guy, so I can use kind of, I don't want the details over here of his face. And I did this with a skull, and I'll show you kind of the result I got from this. So now, again, I'm just going to go to the transpose line, and notice that the gravity is pointing downwards, but again, I can just use this to drape this over his face, right? So now I'm kind of getting an imprint of his face. It's going through. If I don't want it to go through, what I can do here is I can go ahead and, again, increase this to, let's say, 512 iterations, and then just move this into his face like so. And notice here that it's not going through. And again, if I want it to look more like him, right, I basically will reduce this inflate down to 0. And now it will be kind of, it'll conform to his face a little bit more. It will still protrude, but then I basically get this effect, right? So keep this in mind, because in a little bit I will show you how I did this with a skull and created a really cool mask with it. The other things I could also do here that I should have done also is if I expand the cloth, this is kind of cool too, because you can just kind of do this and do this, and then you can kind of get a more kind of cloth looking object, right? So now I'm just basically getting something like this. And then if I rotate this way, I'm going to turn expand off. I usually don't have expand that high, and then I move it onto his face. Now it will conform to his face, but also have those wrinkles, right? So you can kind of create kind of a wrinkly mask like this as well. So all this is really, really cool capabilities to create clothing and whatnot, and to create some kind of imprints of people's faces. So here we go. I just created a mask like that. And if I go in and use slice or trim curve like that, right? So basically I've created kind of a mask like this for this guy that I can, sculpt on and kind of modify after the fact as well. And that's the other thing too, like once your cloth is done, you can always sculpt on it and do other things with it as well. All right, so much for, oh, let's see, we've got questions. Can you hide the head after collision calculation? It will still keep shape. I don't know, that's a good question. I haven't tried it. So here, oops. W, is it still on cloth? Yeah, it is. So here, if I move this, okay, and you're saying if I hide this, will it still do it? Let's see. Yeah, it's kind of cool, actually. Thanks, cool new discovery. Yeah, so if you even hide the head, if it is part of the, if it's calculated here, if it's a collision volume, even though it's hidden, it will still do this. Now the thing to know, and this is kind of cool like that, the thing to know also is that once you calculate the collision volume, that collision volume will stay until you recalculate it, right? So now it's still kind of that collision volume. So it's still doing that, that same kind of thing where it's basically placing this on the guy's face. So yeah, yeah, it's really the cloth stuff is really cool. I mean, you can spend a lot of time making great stuff with it. Okay, all right, and I've got something in Russian which I don't understand. If you can translate it, that would be great. And then also, without using the gizmo. Okay, so and Andre is saying try using the collision. So here, if I use the collision, this thing's going to fall down, right? Because gravity right now is set to basically the floor, which is over here, right? So now, if I turn floor collision on, this will be kind of, it'll make more sense, right? And if I just run the simulation, this is, oh, gravity's really low. Let me up the gravity here. So let's see, what do we got? We got 2 for gravity. Let's go to maybe about 10. And if I run this simulation, how many iterations do we have? 256 iterations. All right, let's run that simulation. You'll see that now this is going to fall down, and then the minute it hits the ground, it's going to actually react to the ground, right? Because right now it knows that the gravity is down below, right? If I want it to fall onto his face, what I can do is just turn it around like this. And as soon as I have it like this, I can just say set direction for gravity. So now gravity is this way. So now if I run the simulation, this is just going to fall on his face like so, right? So now it's just going to, without using the gizmo, it's just going to fall on his face like that. And you can set the gravity to any arbitrary angle, which is kind of cool. So now if I go to here and I rotate this, and let me turn on, I think it's not Y rotation, I think it's X rotation. If I turn X rotation and rotate it like this, right? And like that, right? And now I say set direction. Now the gravity is this way. This is down, right? So if I move this over, actually I'm just going to do it, like that. I'm going to move this up and over like this, right? And if I run that simulation, now it's going to fall this way because this is down now. This is gravity. So you can see now it's falling a completely different way than it would fall otherwise, right? So, so yeah, it's really it's really cool that you can set whatever direction you want for the gravity, and it will set the direction that way. Okay, so Andre, hopefully that answers your question. But yeah, so let me just kind of reset everything here. So I'm going to set direction back to down here, and yeah, so the simulation stuff is really cool, and you can use it for cloth, but I'm using it for hard surface as well. So let me do this real quick. I'm going to take a little bit of a break and load the project so I can actually show you guys some of the stuff I've been working on with this. So let me delete these guys. I don't need them anymore. Delete that as well. Another thing I'm actually thinking is to incorporate this dynamics into this spaceship by creating some sort of a vortex, and I'll do that too. Why not? Before I take my break. Okay, so let's say I'm going to have my ship kind of flying through some sort of a vortex. Let me turn floor off. So what I can do is I can create a cylinder. So here I'm just going to append a cylinder object. Cylinder 3D is fine. W. Set my gizmo here. Oh, can't do that. Not on this. Okay, I'm just going to rotate the cylinder. I'm still on the cloth rotate. I'm going to rotate my cylinder this way and this way, right? Let me turn polyframe on. There it is. And what I'm going to do is get rid of the caps. So I don't need the caps on both sides. That's good. And so I'm going to delete those guys. And what I'm going to do is just ZBrush this thing so I get some good, even geometry on it. So just a quick, default ZBrush. Bam, got that, right? So here, what I want to do is I want to create like some sort of a vortex with this. So what I'm going to do, and this is kind of a nifty trick, is so this, let me just make it bigger so the entire spaceship is in it. Something like this, right? Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to twist this around so it kind of looks more like a vortex. And to do that, what I'm going to do is two things. First of all, here I'm going to click on expand, but I'm not going to have it be expanding this much. So I'm going to have it be expanding as little as it can expand. I'm going to turn gravity off because I don't really need gravity. Then I'm going to do this trick where I'm going to go to the mask. And I'm going to choose this alpha, right? So now I'm just going to draw this mask on. So basically what that does is it masks this area more on the left and doesn't mask this area on the right. Let me do this one more time so I get the whole thing. Okay, and now if I bring this gizmo up, and again I'm using the cloth, I'm going to use the cloth gizmo. I'm just going to rotate this around. And so it's going to create this type of effect, like so, right? Okay, so I'm just going to keep twisting this around so I basically have this type of a thing going on. So this is like wringing the cloth, right? So once I have this done, right, so my spaceship is going through some sort of light speed or some sort of vortex here. And I should also go in here and hide a couple of things. I don't need these energy panels. I'm going to hide those. So there's a spaceship and there's the vortex it's going through, right? So again, I'm just going to go ahead and go to dynamic. Let me clear that mask. So there's that. I'm going to go ahead and clear the mask, and then I'm going to go ahead and go to dynamic subdiv, turn dynamic on, and that's going to give me kind of the smoother type of, I've got two smooth subdivisions. I'll just go to 1 here. And I can just go to micropoly and turn on these spheres, right? Or anything, any one of these guys, right? So let's say I'm going to turn on these spheres. So now I've got all these spheres on here, right? Let me turn polyframe off. And so this spaceship is going to be flying through this kind of vortex of spheres. And I can make this smaller or bigger and whatnot. So I can do that. Or another thing I could also do is if I don't want this many spheres, if I don't want it to kind of be completely that way, I can just turn micropoly off, turn dynamic off, so I have kind of my original thing. And then instead of doing it what I did before, I'm going to go ahead and do it with nano-meshes. So here I'll just go ahead and let me, I guess I could just use squares, it's fine, but I could use any object. But here if I go to nano-mesh, let's Q1, insert nano-mesh. Like so, let's put one everywhere. So nano-mesh, and I'll probably be doing a lot of experiments like this to create nebula and things like that for the spaceship later on. But here I'm just going to go ahead and do it for all polygons and just do this. right? So I've got these squares here. Of course, if I, I can make these into spheres in a little bit, right? So there is all the stuff, but I don't want it to be evenly distributed like this. So I'll just go into the nano-mesh menu. Right here, I have it up already. And let's make the size a little bit smaller, like maybe about that size. And then what I'm going to do is just throw in a random seed and just random distribution, and just randomly distribute these on there, like so, right? So then I've got all of these different things around it, like that. And now that I like this, I'm going to go ahead and click on one to mesh. So now I actually have this all there you go, right? So this is kind of the effect I'm looking for. So now I've got my spaceship going through this kind of weird vortex like so. It's basically using the cloth simulation to arrange them in such a way where they're going in some sort of a cylindrical motion, and the spaceship is going through it, right? So here, I'll do a render. Let's see what that will look like. All right, so yeah, it's pretty amazing. It just really is. And like I said before, I think somebody asked me in one of the streams, like, what would you want them to add to ZBrush? And I said, whatever they add, it's going to be amazing. And every time I'm never disappointed. There's always like amazing kind of super cool stuff that's added. I think it actually looks even better here in the kind of the silhouette, right? So you can kind of see these things. And so here, if I press dynamic subdiv on this object, it's going to go ahead and change all these into, let me see if I can do that real quick. Go to geometry, dynamic is on. Is it on? I guess it is. All right, so, oh, I don't have any dynamic. And let's add some more smooth subdivisions. This is happening on the, let me delete hidden just for kicks. And is this its own subtool? It is. Okay, here we go. Now they're spheres, right? So now it kind of looks a little bit kind of cooler. And of course, I can do something like this too, where I shrink this down. So now it totally looks like it's going through some sort of a weird vortex of sorts. And yeah. And of course, I can simulate gravity on this too as well. So here I'm just going to basically set the direction of gravity down this way. So I'm going to turn gravity back on, set direction on to down here. And I've never tried this, so bear with me. Let's see what the simulation will look like. It's kind of cool. But what if, and let me make sure I've got the, yeah, I do. And what if I turn liquefy on? Let's see what happens then. Here I'm completely going off tangent, on a tangent here, and trying out some new things. So yeah, now it basically is, and let's see, do I have expand on? What about if I try contract? Let's see what that does. Right, so here I'm just basically expanding and contracting this to get like some different effects and whatnot. So basically, you can see that you can use this cloth for cloth, but you can also use it for so many different things. And I've used it for some hard surface stuff, and I'll show you that after I take a short break. So I'm just going to basically save this file, which is going to take a while, and load the other file, and then we will kind of come back to that. Let me answer the few questions here. Yeah, it's I think you're mentioning liquids, and you can kind of simulate. I mean, it's not exactly liquid simulation, but if you actually watch the teaser, which is, I'll show you guys that in a minute. If you watch the teaser, this is not it, but I think it's over here somewhere. Do they still have it? They don't have the teaser anymore? What the heck? It's at the beginning of this. So here, if you see, they're showing the teaser video, which is, where is it? they actually show the beginning of it. It looks like liquid just coming out. I think it's going to be over here, right when it starts. Right about there. You can see this kind of looks like liquid. It's basically just playing it backwards, but this looks like it's liquid coming down. So ZBrush 2021 is coming down like it's a liquid, right? So you can do liquidy type simulations and whatnot. I mean, there's a lot, you know, again, it's ZBrush is one of those things where it's up to your imagination to, you know, once you learn how the thing works, to take it in the directions that you want. But yeah, you can probably play around with that. And then, yeah, nano-mesh is pretty cool with it. So micro-mesh is really great. And then you can also use nano-mesh with it as well. All right, so let's go ahead and get this saving of this going on real quick. And I will also go ahead and load in the other object as I take my break. So I'll turn the music back on and turn the standby back on. This shouldn't take too long. All right, so I'm just waiting for this to finish saving. Let's see. This is done, so let me go ahead and open up the thing I'm working on, which is over here. So there's actually two different projects I was working on in the beta. I didn't finish either one of them yet, but they're getting there as well. They should be done soon. But basically, it's a couple of things that I was working on. One of them was a kind of a super soldier, and the other one was a mech cockpit. And both of these basically, are hard surface kind of projects, but I was using some of the cloth capabilities with it as well, and I'll show you guys those in a minute as soon as this thing loads. So if you guys have any questions in the meantime while this is loading, now would be a good time to ask. I was contemplating whether or not to do this, but I think I will. How are we doing on time? Oh, we're doing great. All right, so this is the first thing I was working on, which is a cockpit, right? So it's basically the inside part of a mech. And what I did here is, I didn't do the exterior of a mech. I do a lot of mechs, and I've always wanted to do an inside of a mech. So this is basically the seat using the cloth capabilities in ZBrush. I've got this kind of padding that is going around the edge over here. So there is actually a lid that closes up. So there's the lid, right? So this closes up, and then the mech pilot sits inside. I actually have the mech pilot, but I'll show it to you in a little bit. So the pilot will sit in here, and then these are the different parts. I'm almost done with this. I think I'm going to work a little bit more on the controls over here. But also notice that there is padding on the inside of the lid. Over here, you can see that as well. So this closes up. And when it does, it basically will, you know, the pilot will be sitting inside. There are no windows, of course. The pilot will look out with the cameras. There are some bars, again, using the cloth simulation very slightly. I've created these kind of softer bars that the guy can hold on to while he gets into the mech and sits inside. So all this was done using the cloth simulation. These pillows here was done using the cloth simulation. The padding around here was done using that. The inside part here was done using that. And all these are pretty nice. They're, you know, to use. And then I'll show you the other thing I'm working on. It's in the same project, which is this kind of mech driver slash future soldier guy right here. So this is basically influenced by some of the stuff that I've seen in Call of Duty Modern Warfare. So I basically have different layers on him. So first things first, you can see he's got this kind of protective arm piece right here that protect his shoulders. And these are basically done with using micropoly and also using the cloth simulation. So basically I just made the inside parts, right? And then I made the outside part just a little bit thicker and ran the simulation. Same thing with this front part right here. And it doesn't really show off as well here because the micropoly is kind of creating this weird Fresnel effect. But if I render it, you'll see what this looks like. So he's got, these are basically protective things that he wears so that they're flexible but not, but they're basically protecting against kind of mech type of warfare weapons. So even though he is inside that cockpit, he is still insulated. So now as this is rendering, you'll see after it's done, so you can kind of see, I guess, still type a little bit like that. Let me make it closer. You'll see that this basically resolves to looking a lot better as type of a, you know, kind of a harsher version of a Kevlar vest. And I use the same thing with for his helmet here. I'll show you all those pieces. And also I use the cloth simulation for his clothing. So I was working on this before this started, and as time went on and the cloth simulation capabilities came forward, I started using it for this. And I'm not finished with it yet, of course, but I will be very shortly here. And but I'll show you a few things, tricks that I used that make things a lot easier. Okay, so now, yeah, you can see it a lot better here. And if I add some color to it, it would look a lot better, right? And you can kind of see the shoulder area and all that. So these are basically the kind of the exterior part of the guy. But what I also want to show you is this mask. So this mask here is basically using that same technique I used earlier, where I basically had a piece of cloth that I draped over the guy's face. So there's the pilot over here. So let me just turn solo on. So there's this pilot over here, and there was a skull inside of it. So I used this to just drape it over the skull. And then once I got done draping it over the skull, it kind of created a nice shape. And then I just sculpted it to form this type of mask, right? So again, hard surface and cloth go together in a certain way, but here they basically created just this mask part for him. And other things that I did for this guy is I created a shirt for him and some pants, and those are all using the cloth simulation. So I'll go ahead and show you the shirt here, which looks like this. Again, really easily done. And what's really nice about the cloth simulation is, let me turn solo off here and just bring the guy and, right, so there's the shirt. And if I want to sculpt the shirt, right, so before I just had to go in and sculpt it and do all that stuff, but now there are all these really cool cloth brushes, right? So here I'm just going to use this one right here, which is really nice. Well, first of all, let me calculate the collision volume. So I want the man here to be the collision volume. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on collision volume, and now that calculates the guy as a collision volume. And I'm working on the shirt, right? And the shirt, I don't know, I think I have dynamic subdiv on it. Right, so if I turn dynamic subdiv off, you can see that the shirt is not really, it doesn't have a lot of resolution. It does have polygroups because I wanted to separate the polygroups out, like so. And if I turn dynamic subdiv on, it becomes smoother, like this. And here, the expand amount, I'm going to change this to maybe 0.05. That basically creates like some sort of border around the object. And now I'm just going to switch to one of these brushes, these cloth brushes. So they begin with C. And I kind of like, you know, there's all of them and they're really useful, but I like this one right here, which is cloth slide for clothing, right? So I can just go ahead and start kind of moving that around here to kind of get a bigger indentation under his arm. And you can kind of see that it just basically creates these folds for me, right? So, you know, everybody thinks a cloth simulation is like, I'm just going to drop something onto something and run a simulation. But realistically, that's kind of cool as an effect. But, you know, you can use this type of thing to just create like these wrinkles on here. And before I used to do this with alphas and it used to take a long time. But now it's just, you know, I just do this and just kind of lightly go over here and do that. Here, if I want to create kind of a half lock fold over here, I just kind of do this and create the wrinkles, right? So again, it's not like dropping the thing on the guy to create the simulation. And if I want this to be less firm, more like cloth, I can bring the firmness down. And then now it kind of creates more of these wrinkles for me, like so. And then of course you can always use smooth to smooth things out. Like if this, I don't like this at all, I can smooth it out and I can just move things around like that. And just with a little bit of subtlety, I can create some really neat effects just using the cloth like so, right? So again, you don't really have to use the entire cloth simulation, you know, engine and like go and click on run simulation or use the gizmo. You can do that initially just to kind of get those few folds, and then you can just kind of, and notice here I've got expand on too, so it creates wrinkles for me. And all I'm doing here is just moving this down and up on the shirt to kind of create these folds. And it's really, you know, I mean, like I said, it's just like one of these things where I can do this now. I mean, it's just so cool. All right, so there's the shirt, and I also created pants for the guy as well. So let me see here. They're right here. So put this shirt back on. Right, so now I've got these pants, and then I basically have these brushes that I use to kind of create these seams like so. And again, similarly, I can just let me run the simulation. I don't need to do that. What brush am I on? Cloth slide, and let's see what is going on with this guy right here. Do I have dynamic on? I don't have dynamic on. All right, so with dynamic on, I think, and I don't need thickness on here at all. So thickness is gone. But I do have dynamic on, but I don't need any smooth subdivision levels. I think this thing has a bunch of subdivision levels already, doesn't it? I think I might have kind of, yeah, I think I might have agreed to keep this at this division level. So here, notice that the intensity is a lot more, so I just can decrease the intensity down to maybe about 10. Let's see what that does. Yeah, and similarly, I can just start kind of moving this around to get different wrinkles. I had the pants be a little bit more wrinkled. This was kind of more earlier on, but you can kind of see again how you can get these effects. Another thing to note here is if I need to make pockets, all I do is just need to create a mask. So let's say I'm going to create a pocket over here. Choose a little bit of a bigger brush here. Here we go. Right, so let's say he's going to have a pocket over here, so I'm just basically going to do this. So that area is masked. I'm sure there's kind of cooler ways of doing that. I'm going to actually hide the guy because I don't need him in there for now. Go back to the pants. I do need the pants, right? So I'm just going to do this. So this is basically going to be, maybe not go up that high. So this is just going to be kind of a pocket over here. So I just mask this part. And then, you know, just kind of do this. And this will tweak that cloth area, but not the masked areas. And of course, I would do this a lot more carefully. And then you would kind of get more of a inscription. And one of the things I want to also create is a bunch of different alphas that I can use to just kind of place on here. And then I can just use that to, and you can kind of see what's happening with the pocket over here. Like you can, this is kind of a good example of it in this one area. I don't know if you can see it, I'll zoom out. So this is kind of the effect I want. So if I, if I want different pockets, I can just kind of mask the different areas. And here I'm just going to do kind of a blind one. So let's say I'm going to, oh, that's kind of also, I've got this mask alpha. Turn that off. That's what was going on. Okay, so I can just bring this over here like that, right? And invert that mask. And I can just move these around in here like so. And then when I do this, I can just smooth this out and we'll kind of create that kind of difference in indentation. Let me bring that mask back. Right, and usually pockets go down, so I'm just basically doing this to it, like so. And maybe lift it up. I have expand on. Maybe I can increase the expand amount a bit. And maybe turn liquefy on. Let's see if that helps. Oh, it is. All right, so now I've got this effect going on. And so now you can kind of see that that creates kind of a difference in the cloth arrangement. And let me go ahead and load in some of my seam stitch brushes that I have. Are they? I think I've got a bunch somewhere in here. This one. Yep. I'll choose one of these guys right here. Let's load this brush in. Right. Or we can use this one too. Oh, this is, I'm double clicking on the icon going, why isn't it loading? Right, here we go. Nope, that's the PSD. That's not it either. Where's the brush? Where? Oh, here it is. It's the first one. Okay, here we go. So now I've got this brush right here, and I can just go in here. Now this basically is just going to run this alpha on here, right? So now that I've got that difference in shape, I can just go ahead and just run this alpha around to where that pocket is going to be. Just hit it with a little bit of smoothing, right? And so now I've got kind of a pocket for him, right? So again, the cloth simulation along with some of these seam stitch things can really kind of make this stand out. So let's see, a bunch of questions. Nope, no questions. Wow, you guys are either asleep or you're just wow to the point of not wanting to say anything. All right, so I'm just gonna get this back to where it was before. Yeah, that pocket kind of didn't come out well because I had that alpha still on that on the smooth. So if I didn't, it would create more of a broken line like this, which is what I really wanted to do in the first place. So let's say there's a pocket like this over here. Right, and I can just basically, if I want, I can just basically mask the rest of the pants. Like, so. Actually, I'm going to run the simulation. I'm going to show you something else that's kind of cool. So let's say I want a pocket over here. What I want to do here is instead of using, I'll use gravity. That's fine. So, and maybe not such a, maybe gravity 5, right? So if I run the simulation now, it's just basically going to, oh, that's right. So what I probably should be doing is I can't run the simulation because the mass, the density I have here, I've set to 250 points. I can up this and run it. But instead of doing that, I'm just going to use the handy dandy gizmo to do it. So there's the cloth. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just do inflate, right? I'm just going to inflate it like so. So here I'm just going to resize. So it's going to inflate it and then just bring it back in. I don't know if you guys saw that. So I'm just going to go up and back in, up and back in, or I can just use this to make it like that and like that. Right, and this is actually using the cloth simulation, and then when I unhide this, now I've basically got a pocket here, right? So yeah, it's pretty cool, all the different types of things you can do with this. And I'm sure there'll be tons of new art coming out showcasing the stuff, but I just wanted to kind of show you guys my head start on it. And again, just creating something like this was a sculpting effort before, but now you know, it takes a few minutes to get something really kind of convincing and looking. I think I'm going a little bit overboard with the number of folds here, but again, you know, you get something new, you kind of have to exhaust all the possibilities. So anyway, so just kind of talking about this guy. Like I said before, he's got the shirt, and I'm basically gonna wanted to have him in different kind of settings. So here, if I hide his protective gear over here, I think this is one of them, right? So basically I just made this and then made another one, made it a little bit bigger, and then just ran the simulation on it to create that outside part. So I'm going to hide that, and I'm also going to hide these parts as well. Right, so underneath that he actually has other parts as well. I think I was kind of doing one of these with him too, which I don't want to have. So I was kind of trying to do like some sort of a scarf over here. But yeah, so I'm basically working on different parts and just kind of populating this guy little by little as I go along. Again, he'd be kind of a character like in Call of Duty or something like that. And you could, you know, add and remove these parts as needed, or they could be different looks and costumes. One of the things I also want to mention here is that, look, I've got this belt over here. And when I ran the simulation on the shirt, it actually conformed to the shape of the belt, which is kind of cool. But just another thing I wanted to show you here also is that with this kind of little thing over here, right? So here, these are just basically very simple cubes, right? That I've stretched out. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to run a quick ZBrush on them. Like so. Click 1, 2, all right? So just quick ZBrush. So I just basically can get evenly divided geometry, something like this, right? And then what I want to do, and I don't know if I want to work with all of these guys, I'll just separate one of them out. It'll be a lot easier. Split hidden. Right, so with this, just this guy right here, right? If I want to kind of get this to look more like cloth, I'm just going to ZBrush it, so it's got kind of ZBrush to it, like so. And then I'm just basically going to go ahead and go to the gizmo, right? So this is the cloth gizmo right here. And what I've got here is I've got gravity on, just a little bit of gravity, but I've got, I don't want to inflate. Well, let's start with inflate, right? So now if I just kind of make this bigger or smaller, floor collision's on, I'm going to turn that off. If I make this bigger or smaller, like notice it already kind of gets this kind of clothy look to it. But maybe that's not really what I want to do. I don't want to inflate it. I want to expand it. And I want to make sure that self-collision is on. So it kind of collides with itself. And do this, right? Like just that. Right there. Right? So we went from a cube to this. And let me turn dynamic on also. So up here. Right, so now that makes it a little bit smoother. Maybe I'll add one more smooth subdivision level onto this. Right, so again, that really simple object that was just a cube is now looking more and more like some sort of a pouch, right? And again, I'm not really doing anything much to this. Let me, oh, cube grid. I don't want cube grid on. Here we go. Like so, right? So now I'm basically doing this. I can scrunch it down this way. And I think I've got one subdivision level too many here. Here we go. And do that. And all of a sudden, it's kind of more of something of an organic shape. I'm going to do this a little bit over with dynamic subdiv on, but cube grid off. Okay. Like that. And all I have here is just expand on with a, if I set it to lower, right, it basically just creates these kind of self-collision things. I can just do that and lift it up. So there it is. And now I can just either model a separate lid for it or whatever. But again, just like a very simple thing. So if I bring the guy back up, you know, instead of something looking like this, it looks like that. And again, just adding a little bit of sculpting to it, and which I can also do. Like if I want to add, you know, I can use that same brush that I had before, this kind of Actually, I like this one too. Cloth hook is good, but where is it? Yeah, cloth hook is good too. I'll use that one. So here I'm just using the cloth hook to just kind of, you know, push and pull this, maybe not with so much intensity. So now if I want these corners not to be as sharp, I can just do that. And notice it just automatically adds those wrinkles for me, right? So yeah, I mean, there are these 4 different things here allow you to do a lot of really cool things. And if I want to make this kind of more inflated, like there's stuff inside of it, I can turn inflate on, maybe turn expand off, and just bring back the gizmo and try and inflate it a bit. So now it's basically more like a pillow, right? And this is basically how I made those inside parts of the mech's cockpit, right? So there we go. And remember, you can also rotate to get different effects, right? So here I'm just rotating it. So that kind of created an interesting effect for me as well. And then just squash it down a little bit. So now I've got a whole other type of a pouch effect going on, and resize it this way. So again, just the simulation with the gizmo creates some interesting effects as well. So yeah, I mean, you know, it's just one of these things where this menu has a lot of amazing stuff in it, and I invite you to spend a good amount of time trying them out, and you can get some really great effects. And of course, this is not even you know, this is basically just working on this object by itself. If you create collision volumes, you can get all sorts of different things happening to it as well. So yeah, so this guy basically, you know, this is the VR helmet he's going to wear inside the mech. Again, not completely finished. I'm getting closer. My secondary shapes are done. Now all I need to do is work on tertiary shapes on some of these things to get it to where I want to be. And sooner or later, you know, basically once I'm done with it, I'm going to create a version of him just kind of standing up, maybe pose him. But also I'm going to go into the cockpit here, and I think I've got a version of him already testing out what he's going to look like sitting in there, right? So there he is, right? Sitting inside of the cockpit of his mech, right? So I haven't finished the detailing of this, but basically this is kind of the different things that you can work on. And again, just with a little bit of tweaking, you can change the folds to kind of conform to where he's sitting. So yeah, you know, fiber mesh brought hair to ZBrush, and now Dynamics brings cloth and cloth-like effects to it. Yeah, exosuits and Anthem. Okay, I haven't played Anthem actually, but I've kind of seen some pictures. I see what you're talking about. Looks like a Snickers bar. Oh, love humor. Okay, so yeah, so basically I just thought it would be a cool thing to show you guys some of the things I've been playing with during the beta, and again, you can get some really kind of cool effects to you know, create characters and create clothing on characters and whatnot. So yeah, here we go. Go back to this guy here, and I'll kind of try out a couple of these other brushes. This cloth wind is good too. So notice here that whatever I'm doing, it's applying these effects. So I don't want to inflate it anymore. I want to actually maybe deflate it a bit. So now it's actually deflating it, and I'm creating kind of a little bit more of a deflated effect on this. So it kind of is looking like that. And then I can always switch to this cloth pinch, and I don't know if I've got enough geometry on here. Maybe add another subdivision level over here. So right now I am on smooth 2, maybe add 3, and then firmness is 1 is good, and then just maybe push this out to kind of create this type of pocket. It's still deflating. Now I just want to go ahead and do none of this, and just use pinch like so to maybe create this top part of the pouch, right? And you're still getting the effects of the clothing, and then you can always switch back to any brush. So here I'm going to switch to damp standard, and maybe kind of imprint this a little bit more here. You know, the way I would do it, I'd probably just add another thing on top here, but I'm just going to go ahead and do this way. By the way, another thing I should also mention is any brush, any one of the brushes that you have in ZBrush can be a cloth brush, right? So here, if you go to B, they've added a bunch of cloth brushes. I think they're here. So if you hit C, I think there's 10 or so cloth brushes that they've added, but any brush. So here I'm using Damien Standard or Dam Standard brush. Right? If I want this to be a cloth brush, all I got to do is just go under the brush menu and go to, where is it? Where are you? Is it under modifiers? Nope. It's under elasticity, right? So under elasticity, you can just say simulation iterations, and you can up that to how many you want. And you can also turn these affected as well, but basically I'm just going to turn on simulation points, and now I'm just using Damien Standard, but it is using the simulation options. I think, what do I have chosen here? Let's go ahead and choose expand again. And so now I'm just doing this again, just with Damien Standard brush, but it's doing what it usually does, but it's also doing the cloth simulation as well. And let me up this even further. Let's go all the way up to 100. And you can see that not only am I just using Damien Standard, just this brush that I use all the time, but I'm also using it with the cloth dynamics or simulation system. So yeah, pretty cool stuff. I just kind of wanted to take this tangent and show you guys this. But now that we have done this, if you guys have any questions, you can ask on this, and if not, I'm just going to go ahead and load the spaceship back up. So while you guys are thinking about the questions and we're dealing with a little bit of a delay, I will just continue to work on this a little bit. But yeah, eventually, you know, my goal is to finish this thing in the next few days and render it out. All right. So let me go ahead, and I guess there is no, you know, it's not that taxing to the you know, it depends, right? So you know, good question asked. What I'm going to do here is go back to, well, actually I can do it right now, and then I'll load the spaceship back up. Excuse me. So the thing to note here is that it is not, it's taxing, but it's really not taxing, right? So here, if I just go ahead and pick a plane, and I'm just going to start with a cube here. Let's pick a different color. Don't switch. Let's just choose white here. What is going on? All right, there it is. I keep adding cubes. Okay, I don't want to add cubes. I just want to create one face here. This is why I wanted to add that plane to the, if anybody here is bought or has my primitives brush, I will be updating it on Gumroad probably in the next few days as well. You can just pick it up there. So here I just have this plane, right? So this plane is just has, you know, basically 4 vertices. It's a very, very simple plane. If I subdivide this, right, I'm getting more iterations, right? So now if I am simulating this thing, and I'll just go ahead and just do simple, use the cloth hook. Now if I'm simulating this, right, so it's simulating this many points. Let me give it some thickness here. Dynamic, no subdivisions, but a little bit of a thickness, a little bit more of a thickness, even more, like so. Okay, so here, right, so this basically has not as many polygons on it. So if I move this around, you'll notice that it's moving, but it's, you know, it's kind of, you know, it doesn't really have that much geometry. If I continue subdivide and delete lower, I've got something like this. So now notice that it's pretty spiffy, pretty fast. I think the intensity, I changed that. Let me put that back up to its default of 50. Right, so now if you notice here, this is pretty fast, right? So it's, you know, not really taxing my system at all. And I don't really need to have this be subdivided all the way to, a lot of different levels. I can just kind of keep it to this. And right now, all I'm doing is expanding it and having a little bit of gravity. I can increase the expand amount here to, let's say, 0.5. Just with a little bit of gravity here. And you can notice that this is pretty responsive, right? And I have a lot of simulation here. I've got 512. If I go back down to the default of 100, right, you can see that this gets a lot faster. So you don't really need a very fast system to use this simulation if you don't have a lot of points. And you don't need a lot of points if you use this in a smart way, right? If you are smart about how you do this, you don't really need a lot of, let me turn floor collision on here and just run the simulation. Oops, I guess it was above the floor. Let me move it up to here. And if I just run the simulation, do I have gravity? I do have gravity. Am I kind of, oh yeah. I'm way off of where I need to be, and this thing is huge. Let's just unify it. So things to remember is always kind of work in the ZBrush's kind of unified space. And let me put this in the center here. Okay, so notice here that let me center the gizmo on this guy. Where's the gizmo? There you are. Okay. Okay, notice here that if I run this simulation, like so, it's going to move there. It's going to move there because that's the direction I set it in. I'm going to set it this way again. Floor collision is on, and it's just going to fall to the floor. Notice that this is a lot faster. But if I start adding subdivisions to this, right? If I add dynamic subdivisions, it's just going to be just as fast. It's not going to be slower. Right now, I just have expand on. Maybe turn expand off here. Rotate it this way. Right? Notice you can rotate whatever angle. It's still going to collide with the surface here. Notice that the simulation speed has not. This thickness is way too much. So notice here that the simulation is really not slowing down at all. Right? So you make sure that your subdivision levels here under divide are manageable, right? So if you don't have a lot of and you don't really need a lot of subdivisions, and then you can use dynamic, and it'll be just as fast. So it's not really taxing on the system at all. I've used it on my laptop, and the kind of the simulation is pretty cool. One last thing to talk about here also. Let me get this thing back to a plane. Like so, and a little bit of dynamic thickness. And what I want to do is do this and do this. And I want to unify it just to make sure that the size is right. Okay, so there it is, like so. I'm going to turn floor collision off for a minute. Turn it back on. The other thing also you should know that's kind of a really cool thing is if you masked part of the object, so here, my default mask, right? So if you mask part of the object like so, you can just click on mask. So right now the simulation will act on the masked parts and not this top part, right? So I'm moving this top part around like so, and the cloth simulation is happening on the masked part, right? So here, if I want to kind of create like a flag or something like that, this is the way to do it. So I've got gravity on. That's good. I'm just going to do a little bit of expand, not much, right? And now what I'm doing here is just moving this back and forth like that. And the simulation is just acting on a part that is masked like that. Right? So now I'm creating kind of a flag type of look, and I can just kind of do the resize like so. I can move it back and forth. I can shrink it down this way, and notice here I'm basically creating kind of a cape effect, right? So there's the kind of cape effect. And now if I want to make it flutter, I can mask maybe just this part of it and just do this. And again, the top part is staying put, but the bottom part is kind of flapping around, right? So yeah, you know, this is not cloth simulation like you have in other programs where you have to figure out a lot of different dynamic stuff and calculations and whatnot. It's just it's very ZBrush. It's very much like very fluid, very fast, and you can get some really amazing effects. So here what I'm going to do is, again, invert the mask and create like some sort of a rotational effect on this. Right, so notice that after I rotate it, like so, it's going to want, if you move it forward, it's going to basically want to, maybe I rotated way too much here, like that. It's going to want to flatten back out, but again, now you can kind of create some really cool effects. So the gizmo with the mask, with all these capabilities, and it's just like a whole box of toys that I got for ZBrush that I can use now. All right. Yeah, so you definitely don't want to have a lot of polygons when you run your simulation. You want to have enough so that when you go to dynamic subdiv, it gives you the shape that you want. Again, just like anything in ZBrush, if you have the right settings, if you're going about it the right way, you can get some really amazing effects. All right, so enough of this. I've kind of, this new version of ZBrush has completely derailed my spaceship. So let's go ahead and open that back up. And we can kind of get back on track to our project that we had before. And hopefully you guys are enjoying some of these new things that we're doing. All right, let's just go to ZBrush here and load the spaceship back up. I think my camera is kind of going back on the fritz here. Let me try to up the brightness a bit, see if that helps. Yeah, my camera keeps going in and out. I don't know why. Probably need to get a new one at some point. There we go. Yeah, I had to focus on autofocus before, but maybe I need to manually focus. Here we go. It just fixed it. Okay, so right now I've got my spaceship loading back in. So any questions, anything else? Wow, we got 100 people watching. That's kind of more than I've had before. Anybody have any other questions on the cloth simulation stuff? It's really, really cool. It's just one of those things where, as artists start, this thing's been out since I think Wednesday is when they dropped it, so I think people are still getting used to it. There'll be plenty of tutorials soon, and I basically will create one as well. In my tutorial, it's going to be talking about the 7 folds, and if you guys are not familiar with the 7 folds, if you're an artist and you're drawing, they basically teach you 7 folds to draw, and you can draw any fold with that. So yeah, you can kind of see that vortex effect happening here. So when I do kind of a cool render of this, it will show up before. So I didn't really intend on doing this, but it turned out really interestingly. It turned out really nice. All right, so back to the spaceship here. What's the difference between 1, 2, 3, and 4 in self-collision? Somebody's asking. So basically, self-collision is if an object is going to go through itself or if it's going to collide with itself as well. So here, let me just jump to this guy again. By the way, it doesn't have to be, cloth doesn't have to be a whole thing. It could be a guy too. So let's say this guy gets this horrible disease, right? And so his face is going to kind of be droopy. So for that, I'm going to turn liquefy on, right? And I'm going to mask this bottom part because I don't want this bottom part to change. And I don't really want his head to change as well. So I'm just going to switch to mask lasso again. Right, so I don't want his kind of top part of it. I don't want his hair, his nice coif to change. I just want his face to change. Right, so here, let's see. Well, this thing is pretty subdivided here. He's got 2 subdivision levels. I'm going to go back to 1. and delete the higher subdivision levels. So we kind of have this, right? So here's our guy, and what I want to do with this guy is, he's still got those inside parts too. So let me split those out. Split two parts. Split two similar parts. Where is it? Here we go. Okay, okay, there it is. All right, so we don't want his mouth bag or his eyes to change. I should put masks around them too, but it doesn't matter. Right, so now if I run the simulation, I still have unmasked on, so I'm going to turn that off. Run the simulation, right? So you can create things like this too. Like nobody really thinks about it, and this is too intense. The gravity is too intense. So what I'm going to do is reduce the gravity, and then I'll answer your question. I haven't forgotten it yet. So I'm going to reduce the gravity to, like, let's say about 2, right? And I'm going to also turn inflate on as well, but maybe not so much, maybe 2.2, and then just run that simulation, right? So now his face is kind of falling downwards with the gravity, right? Maybe gravity strength of 1. And I'm also going to pump up the simulation points to maybe about 256. And the inflate is too little, so I'm going to go to 0.5. Let's go to 1. Let's see what that gives us. And so let's run that simulation. There we go. That's what I want. Pillow face. Right, turn this off. So you kind of get this type of effect going on, right? So the question was, so what's self-collision, right? So if I have it on 0, it's not going to collide with itself. So what that's going to do is that things are going to intersect each other, right? So there you can see it's happening right here, right? The object is intersecting with itself. If I don't want that to happen, then I can just kind of turn self-collision on. And the numbers that you go up is basically how much of that self-collision will happen. So 4 is maximum. And now if I run that simulation, you'll notice that that's not happening over here, right? And it's not happening over here either. So he's just kind of becoming Mr. Balloon Face over here. This looks so funny. And so, you know, it's not colliding into itself. The polygons are not kind of going through each other, right? So does that answer the question? So yeah, that's kind of the thing you want to do. And again, remember, even with this, maybe reduce this inflate now. Well, actually, I'm going to turn the inflate off, but I'm going to keep expand on. And now I'm just kind of can use this cloth hook brush to kind of even do some more kind of interesting things with this guy. Maybe pull out his nose a bit. So you see here, I mean, it had kind of, I don't know what the topology was inside, but it basically created that kind of effect. So now I've created this really, you know, horrible guy. He still has his nice coif though. Nothing's changed there. But yeah, you can kind of create some weird masks and things like that with this effect as well. So that's what self-collision does, right? So 1 or 0 is it allows things to collide with themselves. And then, you know, you can just kind of up that and try the different levels. And 4 is maximum, where it will not allow things to collide with themselves at all. It will do the best, the algorithm will do the best not to have stuff collide with themselves. So hopefully that answers that question. Cool. And if anybody else has any questions, you can ask them. I think we are, oh my gosh, we're almost done with time. So we'll have to color the spaceship next time. I'll start now, but we can do it later. So let me see what this thing is. Yeah, so I basically created this shape right here before, just using the insert primitive option in ZBrush. And so now I can actually get this to, I can run some sort of cloth simulation on this too. I'm going to try it. So here, let's go to the normal mask, and I'm going to choose this alpha for it. Like so. And I'm going to use that handy dandy trick I used earlier, which basically is doing this. Well, this thing has a lot of subdivision levels, so notice here that it has quite a bit of subdivision levels, right? So it's going to be a little bit slower, but I'm going to have expand on, gravity on, liquefy on, floor collision on. Let me see, do I have dynamic on? Oh, I have 4 smooth subdivision levels on. I'm going to reduce that down to 2, and now it's going to be pretty fast, right? So as I'm rotating this, it's going to have a very interesting effect on this kind of hard surface shape. right? So now I have this. I'm going to turn, right? So I've got this kind of hard surface looking thing. Now all of a sudden is a soft, you know, kind of a mushy type of thing. And this kind of works really good with space type of scenarios where you have a lot of objects that have cushioned areas around them. So you can take that kind of piece and turn it into modern art like this. And I'm going to go ahead and bring up the floor here and bring up just a normal gizmo. Rotate this up and like so. And by the way, one thing to note here is that in ZBrush, when you move your object, right, the floor will, you know, jump up and meet it, right? So now the floor will be at the bottom of your big, you know, your kind of object that is the lowest here. But if you want the floor to actually be where the floor is, you just go to the draw menu here and change this elevation from -1 to 0, right? So I'm going to type it in. So right now, this is where the actual floor is, right? So I'm just going to lift this up like so. So this is where the actual floor is, and then I'm going to turn on floor collision. Self-collision, I'm going to turn that to maybe 3 here. We have gravity. Let's up the gravity strength to let me see here, 10. Simulation points, 256 is too much. Let's go to 128. And expand is on. Everything is good. Let's run that simulation. So now what I'm doing is where do I have gravity on 10? Simulation points at 18. So now see how slow it is. So you're saying, oh, it's taxing on the system. So if I want this to go faster, all I need to do is just go, these smooth subdivision levels can go down to 1, right? To 0. And now it's going to go a lot faster. Do I have liquefy on? I do. So with liquefy, it's even going to kind of create a more interesting effect. So now this is basically coming towards the floor. I'm just doing this to mess around with it to see what happens. Right, so since I have self-collision down to 3, I see a little bit of self-collision going on down here, but it's not too bad. And at some point, it's going to start meeting the ground, which is right there, and start flattening out. All right, so there it is. Right, and now, so now I've basically created a whole other type of look to this object, which looks like it's basically falling down this way. And now if I want to keep this bottom part the way it is, right, I'm going to completely invert it around. And do I still have that? I do. So here, notice that this mask, I guess I could just rotate this. Or I could always rotate the mask as well. So what I'm going to do is do this to it. So basically I want the bottom, nothing to happen to the bottom. I want it to be super masked, but the top part, I want it to inflate like a balloon, right? So now I'm going to turn this upside down, and I'm going to say that set direction of gravity. So the gravity now is pointing down this way. I've inverted the gravity direction, and now I'm just going to inflate this thing like a balloon. I'm going to have expand back on. I might even go to 0.5 on here. Okay, so expand is on, gravity is on. So now I'm going to run the simulation. It's going to do something completely different. Let's see here. I don't have subdivision levels on this thing. No, I don't. Okay, so here, just run the simulation. So now notice it's moving upwards and inflating. Right, so now it's inflating like a balloon. It's not inflating down here because it's mass, but up here it is inflating. Maybe turn expand off at this point and continue the simulation. That's the other thing too. You can turn these things on and off and continue your simulation. And now you have something like this happening. There is no floor, so it's basically just expanding out like a balloon. Right, so now you have this thing. It collided down and created this kind of effect. But on top, it's kind of inflated like a balloon, right? So you can have all these, you can create all sorts of the interesting types of things in here. And then if I want, I can also put in an insert primitive and make this even more like a balloon, so you can create some interesting effects that way as well. All right. So I think we're almost at the end of our time here, and I'm sorry, ZBrush 2021 just completely took over this stream, but it's fine. You guys had good questions, and if you have some more, I think I've got time to answer maybe 2 more questions, or maybe 3. So if you have them, ask them. If you don't, then I will bid you a good night, and I will see you on the other side. And let me see if I can do this with the gizmo too, while you guys are thinking of questions to ask. All right, so I'm going to go over to here, accept this, and then I'm going to go over to the transpose cloth, put my mask on again. No questions. And see, oh, well, that was interesting. So now I'm basically just using the transpose cloth, and I'm using inflate. I might bump this up to 2. Let's see what that does. And I'm just going to inflate this like so. And that's creating kind of a whole other type of look here. And then compress it down. Right? So just remember, you don't have to use the cloth simulation just for cloth simulation. You can use it for all sorts of other things too, to get some interesting effects. So there's that, and let's go ahead and add some dynamic subdivision levels. So now I've kind of created a very wonky looking object like this. 3D print this thing, and have it be outside a building as kind of some sort of sculpture, I guess. All right, so it seems like nobody has any questions. Oh, yeah. Helmet, you're in Ghana. You finally made it. And you're watching this from there too. How can you let cloth wrap around an object? Okay, so we have one question. All right, so let's bring up an object here. Let me go over here into Lightbox. Go to Prod Tools. And let's say what I want to do is I want to take this dog right here. Okay, so this dog is going to be our object. I should switch back to my regular gizmo. Okay, so there's my dog, and what I want to do is I want to wrap cloth around this dog. I don't want to droop the cloth down, I just want to wrap around it, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to duplicate this dog, like so. There he is. And then I'm going to zero mesh him at a lower subdivision level. Okay, so I'm just going to go to half here and just zero mesh him. Let me put the polyframe on and solo him out and do this. So there's that, right? So that's kind of good, but I'm going to do it again. I'm just going to zero mesh it one more time. And as I'm doing this, I'm going to lose some of the details, which is what I want to do. And I have this as half, so it's going to get less and less detailed, but I just want the basic shape to still be there. And that's good enough. Now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and inflate this. So go to deformation and inflate. Right, so it's basically just going to be bigger than the original dog. Right, so here's the original dog. I'll just go off of solo, turn transparent on. Okay, so the original dog is inside this one, right? Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to, first of all, let's turn floor collision off for a minute. Actually, why not? Let's keep it on. Okay, so there it is. There's gravity, right? And the gravity is at 10. We might need to change that. I'm going to turn liquefy off for now. And what I want to do is I don't want to inflate this. I want to contract. And I want to calculate the inside dog as a collision volume. So there you go. Collision volume. That is now the collision volume, right? So now if I run the simulation, let's try that. This is what's going to happen. The reason why this is happening is because the gravity is pointing upwards because we changed it. So here I'm just going to go ahead and set it downwards. Number is 10. Now let's go to 5. And let's increase this to 256. And also what I want to do here is inflate amount, I'm just going to give it a little bit of an inflate amount, and then let's just run the simulation. Okay, so now it's just basically wrapping this around that object. Now if I don't want it to droop downwards, I can turn gravity off, and all I want it to do is just contract. I want it to contract, and the amount is 1, and that's basically it. I'll turn gravity on, turn it to 0, and turn liquefy on. Okay, so now it's basically wrapping it around this object. Now, with the places where it's intersecting, I'm going to turn self collision off. It's intersecting, so I need to up this inflate a little bit and run the simulation, and now it's not intersecting, and now it's basically wrapping around the object, right? But it's not getting kind of some of the effects that I want, which is fine. So what I'll do here is I'll go ahead and switch this back to expand, run the simulation, and then I'm starting to get some of those wrinkles like this, right? I'll just wait a few minutes and then stop the simulation and then contract it again, right? So, you know, and then right now I don't know if I have dynamic on. I don't. I'll turn dynamic simulation on. So now I've got kind of a little bit more geometry, 2 subdivision levels, right? And then run the simulation one more time. Now it's contracting. Go to expand, run the simulation. And expand is basically going to give me that nice kind of wrinkles and folds. Right, and it's basically taking now a lot more time because I've got the simulation iterations up. Right, okay, so now I just kind of let this run for a while like this, and then stop it. Now I'm going to turn gravity back on, give it a little bit more gravity, let's say about 5, and up this to 1. And I don't want it to expand anymore. I want it to contract, but also have gravity. Gravity is way too much. Maybe gravity of 2. Okay, so basically there is the gravity kind of folding it down. So that's how basically wrap an object around it. And then kind of to add a little bit more to it, right? I don't know what's going on. I guess the mouth was open. It's not a closed mesh. So that's why I've got this weird thing happening over here. And now if I want to actually tweak it a little bit more, I just go to cloth hook and just turn expand on. That's the only thing I have on. And leave gravity on, that's fine too. And then just kind of do this. Right, and so now I basically have this cloth wrapping around this dog. And the reason, notice here, that it's not actually hitting the dog is because this inflate is at 1. If I change it to 0, now it will actually hit the dog. Maybe a little bit more. Oh man, I upped this resolution. Let's see, 1024 is good. And I want this inflate to be maybe 0.1. Right, so now as I move this on here, it is actually going to collide with the actual dog itself. So now you basically have this effect. Right, and if this dog is going to go to war, I just turn micro poly on and turn on chainmail, and maybe turn these down a bit. So now I've got chainmail on a dog, and I'll turn gravity back on, turn expand off, and run the simulation. And notice that the simulation is actually running with the chainmail, like so. So how about that, right? Okay. Draper on cloth, or on cloth if you're putting the cloth on the ground. How would you do drapery on cloth? Helmet, could you explain that? Oh, saving it as an animation. Yeah, you can save it as an animation. So basically what you do is in timeline, you basically set a point, and then you set another point in the timeline, and it will create the animation. I'll show that next time. I'm running out of time here, but I also want to just basically, Helmet, you said something about how will you do drapery on cloth if you were putting the cloth on the ground. I don't understand that. Can you explain that in a different way? In the meantime, I'll see if I can do the animation thing here. So we just go to, I think there was a, where was it? There's a way to do it. I think I forgot how to do it. I'll look it up again next time. I don't want to kind of be fishing around menus while you guys are watching. So Helmut, if you don't ask me about the cloth thing again, just drop me an email. I think there is a bit of a delay. I don't understand your question. Drapery on cloth, if you putting the cloth on the ground, I don't understand that. Drapery on cloth. Okay. Yeah, the animation I'll show you next time, but you can animate it. You can animate the cloth kind of going from one state to the next. Like the simulation that you have here, you can animate this thing. So you can basically capture different frames of it in timeline, and then you can play it back, and you can save it as a movie. All right, Helmut, you okay? There no. It's with 3D layers. You can, yeah, I think you're right. I think you can do it with 3D layers. That's right. Yep, with MDD. That's correct. You can do it with MDD. That's right. How was this done? Import it now. Yeah, record. Yeah, there it is. Record deformation animation to an MDD file, and then you can bring the MDD file in. So here we go. Let's do it. So I'm just going to go back out here, and then we can say record deformation MDD, and then we can just run the simulation. And then when you stop it, I think it asks you to save the MDD file. Yep. So I'm just going to pop it here on my desktop. Save. All right, and then with animation here and the movie, I think you can load an MDD file. Let me just go to another object here and go to movie. Where is it? Modifiers. There should be a load MDD somewhere. Load movie. And I think, does it have MDD in here? I shouldn't be kind of fishing around trying to do this. I should have tried it before. I haven't played with this before, but you know, it's not this way. But yeah, there's a place in here where you can load an MDD file. Overlay image, that's not it. Modifiers, no. I think there's a place here where you can, where's the timeline? Tracks. Timeline, load audio. Yeah, there's a place where you can, yeah, let's see, load this, timeline, ZMO. Nope, that's not it. Yeah, I don't remember where the MDD loading is, but it will be, you know, it will be, there's a place where you can import the MDD, and when you do, it basically will import that MDD file of the simulation, and then you can play it back in timeline. I'm going to take one more look at this. Oh, import MDD. Geez, it's right there. Okay, there, import MDD. Let's go over to this object. Cancel out. You guys can see how I figure stuff out usually. Okay, so there's that. Import MDD. There is the MDD file on my desktop. Animation.mdb. MDD, there it is. The file move vertices into the current layer. Oh, I think I need to actually be on this object in its original state before this, right? Import MDD into it. All right, and now it has it in my timeline, so I can just play. That simulation. Why isn't it happening? I don't know. I shouldn't be playing around with this. I should not have answered that question. I should have looked it up first. I'll look it up. Tune in a couple of weeks. I'll have it for you. Okay. So, no, it's fine. You know, it's always good to know that I don't know everything. And that's one feature I didn't beta test or play with. So I'll take a look at it. But yeah, you can definitely do animations in it. I think, Helmut, you said drapery, or said, okay, it folds when cloth is on a bed. Oh, it's real easy. So here, I'll just go to a create a cube. Where are you? Cube 3D, there it is. And let me get rid of everything else. Okay, so that's good. And let's say I'm going to make this into that bed. There's the bed, right, like that. And then I'm just going to duplicate this, like so. And what I'm going to do is on the duplicate, I'm just going to use this top part. Actually, probably be easier if I just add a plane. Delete that. It's not doable. Okay, that's fine. And then I'm just going to append a handy dandy plane here. Plane 3D. There it is. W, rotate it this way. Oops. Okay, and I'm just going to add a little bit of thickness to it. Let's see what's the resolution on this. That's too much. Maybe about there. Right, that's the sheet on the bed. Right, maybe a little bit less as well. So there it is. And notice here this resolution is actually fine. I'm just going to remove the creases on the edges. So geometry, crease, uncrease all. Okay, so there it is, right? So now what I could do here is I could just say, okay, I've got gravity. The gravity strength is, let's say, 5. And I've got expand on. And it's at 0.5, that's fine too. And let's see if I do this. I can just move this. Did I add thickness to it? I did not. Geometry, is this a 3D object? 3D, now it is. And I think the initial, I don't know if, yeah, it was. We're good. All right, and then let's just add a little bit of thickness to it so we can see the bottom part. Dynamic on, thickness on to about here. That's too thick. I think Pavlovich in the launch thing showed kind of doing more of a comforter type of a thing too. You can do it that way. We basically masked it. Okay, so there it is. So now if I just put this on, you know, let's make sure gravity is in the right direction. Oh, I've got expand on like really high. And oh, I have to recalculate the, it's got the old object that was calculated on. So now, I'm going to do one more thing here. I'm just going to zero mesh this bed. So there's the geometry. Is this Polymesh 3D? It's not. I need to make it into Polymesh 3D. Make Polymesh 3D. There it is. Come over to here. Pick this guy up. Copy it. And go to Polymesh 3D and paste it here. All right, so now we should be good. Recalculate. And so now notice that it's just basically going to do this, right? So that's basically the sheet on the bed, right? So notice here it's going through the corners. If I don't want it to go through the corners, all you need to do is change that inflate up, right? So now that inflate is up, it will not go through the corners. It will actually conform better. So there is that, right? So that's how you start. And maybe a little bit more of an inflate here. Let's go to 1. Right. Okay, so there it is. There's my sheet. But now if I wanted to, and I can just run the simulation for it to just completely fall by the side. Notice that I've got expand on a little bit, so it's expanding a little bit, and the gravity is not that much. If I change this to 10, it'll be a lot more. Okay, so there's that. Now, but it doesn't really look like bed sheets per se. And also, let me change this to 2 or 1. I'm just going to do this. Okay, so now it basically looks like it is on the bed. I can lift it up a bit, so there it is, right? What do I have? Self-collision on 4. Okay, floor collision is on as well. It's all good. All right, so there's that. Now, if I want to get wrinkles on here, right, the way to do it is you just pick cloth hook, right? Change the size up, and expand is on, maybe not as much. And then you just kind of go like that, right? And another one that I really like here, this is a good one to use, is this cloth swirl or cloth twister. And you can just put that on here and just do that, right? So you kind of can get that effect. And then pressing Alt will turn it in the other direction, right? So now basically it's creating that, and then you can run the simulation again for it to fall down. And so now you kind of have this effect on here, right? And you can also, you can always use these other things too. So maybe there's like some sort of a balloon or something in here. You can inflate it up, or you can go the other direction and inflate it down, like so. Right, so you can do all sorts of fun stuff. Does that answer your question, Helmet? So yeah, so it's basically like this, or you can just kind of completely take this and pull it off the bed as well, like that. And it will still react to the gravity. Again, you can just always do this, and so you kind of can get the different effects on here. Okay, yeah, so it's pretty cool to be able to do all these kind of clothy stuff, but remember, there's plenty more you can do with it as well. All right, how do you roll a cloth like a scarf? Helmet, you're not going to let me go. All right, I'll show you how to do that too, and then that'll be the last question. Okay, so we're going to rotate this around like a scarf. So what I'm going to do here is just mask this part. Let me take this alpha off. I'm just going to mask this part of or actually I can just do it, instead of inverting the mask, I'm going to mask this part, right? So here it is. So now what I want to do is rotate this around so it's kind of like a blanket, right? So now remember, you can turn in on mask. So on mask is on. I'm going to go to the gizmo, that is the gizmo for cloth. And then here, notice I can just do, as I do this, right, I'm moving that part, but the masked part is what the cloth simulation is happening to, right? So there's that, right? And then I can decrease that mask. And then pick this part and then roll this around as well. So here, I'll actually do it this way. Right, so here's this. So take this out and roll it. It's reacting to the collision object. I'm going to lift it up and just rotate it around, move it down, rotate it, move it down, like so, and continue to do this. Right? So you basically are rolling it around the object as you go along. Let me do this right. Here we go. Actually, I'm going to turn the collision volume off. I'm going to hide that bed so we don't deal with it. I'm also going to hide the floor and just do this. Oops. So I'm just picking this up and just rolling it around like so. Do I have self collision on? I do. Floor collision off. Right, so there it is. Right, so I can do this and then turn the mask off, turn off on masked, and then just use these brushes to kind of tweak it around like so. Right? It is doing a little bit of self-collision, but you can fix that by turning off the thickness. I think will help with that. Like so, and then you can just kind of smooth these out. Use just inflate to get it out of the way. So hopefully that answers that question. VT Pro. Oh, yeah, it is me. Yeah, that is my SpiderBot. So good. Yeah, and let me kind of explain this to the rest of the people on here and do a little bit of a plug. So what he's talking about is this. So if you go to the Gnomon Workshop, Right, if you go to the Gnomon Workshop, I have a couple of videos on there. This is cool. This is new. So if you look for me here under K, I'm here. I did this tutorial, which is a spider bot that I did, and so yeah, you can kind of see that as well. You have to actually subscribe to the Gnomon Workshop to watch it, but it is a very long tutorial on how to create this thing from scratch, all the way from concept. There's a lot of really good art tutorials in there as well, so you guys can go and kind of watch that if you want to. It's kind of a soup to nuts of this thing. So I use Substance Painter to paint it. I use Keyshot to render it. I mostly use ZBrush to model it and whatnot. So I invite you to go look at this. And with that, I will end the stream. Thank you very much for tuning in and watching. I will be on in a couple of weeks to continue this robot. You know, this happened to me one time as well. Not this robot, but it's the spaceship. This happened to me one time before, I think when ZBrush 2020 came out, and I basically took over one of my streams. But I'll be more than, I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have. And if you guys have questions next time, you can let me know too. I will definitely figure out how to do that MDD file animation and do that as well. Okay, so they do have a rig DVD, by the way. Not of my Spider-Mech, but they do have rig DVDs, AVT Pro. Okay, yeah, there's Oculus Medium in it as well in the tutorial. Thanks for mentioning that. Okay, so good night, everybody. Have a good night. Stay safe. COVID is still out there. Let's beat this thing so we can get back to normal life. So wear your mask, wash your hands, do all the good stuff that you need to do. And with that, I wish you all a good night and take care. Bye-bye.